Like I knew that I had had too much to drink, and I knew I had the ability to know that. I probably got confused. I didn't know where she was. And I went, got behind the wheel of my car and started driving home. Somebody called in an erratic driver. That was me. And they found me on the side of the road, and I ended up getting a DUI.
Mm.
I went to bed that night, still in anger, like, this happened to me, not my fault. The magical thing that happened is I woke up the next morning.
Welcome back to the Sobriety Diaries, friends. I'm your host, Nate Kelly, best-selling author and podcast producer, but most importantly, a recovering alcoholic 8 years from my last drink. I am so grateful to be bringing you these powerful stories of recovery told by you, those who live them. If you're joining us for the first time, check out more information at thesobrietydiaries.com and make sure to share the podcast with one person in your life who may need it today. You never know what they may need to hear. And with that, let's open the diary on Marci Hopkins. I am so excited for this conversation, and it's been in the works for a while. Today's guest is the author of the inspirational book, Chaos to Clarity. She's a sought-after public speaker, recovery expert, and host of the award-winning morning show, Wake Up with Marci. She's a beacon of inspiration and empowerment in both lifestyle and recovery. Please welcome Marci Hopkins. Marci, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Nate. Thank you so much for having me on. It means a lot.
I'm so excited to chat. I think we both try to use our platform as a way to empower and encourage others who may be struggling. So, Marci, I'd love to hear perhaps what led you to seeking a path to recovery, or, what started this journey for you.
Yeah, Nate, it's interesting. I have for most of my life wondered if my drinking is normal or not, because my mother was an alcoholic. My grandfather drank every day. Everyone around me was constantly drinking. So that was very normal to me. And I had a lot of trauma growing up. So I did use alcohol as a way of coping. But I also was living a pretty successful life once I got into my 20s, started my career, got married in my 30s, had 2 children. It was in my 40s that I had my worst time with alcohol. There were many times that I would go back and forth and struggle with my drinking too much, my not. But it was in my 40s where I was like, am I destroying everything in my life? Or is my husband just no fun and I'm just not getting to live the life that I want to live, right? I was having a lot of shame and feeling really bad about my drinking habits. I was looking a lot at different ways to help tame my drinking. Whether I was waking up in the middle of the night, right? Because I'd be like, okay, I had too much wine last night. I'm not going to do it tomorrow.
Mm.
How can I change, right? How
Famous
can I change?
last words, right?
Right. How can I change without not drinking, without not drinking,
Yeah.
right? So it was, looking into hypnosis and just all these different modalities that I was hoping that would help me in some way, but it didn't have to actually quit drinking.
Yeah.
It was just going to help me tame my drinking, taper it off, right? While that did not work and things got pretty bad, I decided to try the 12-step program. And the reason that I ultimately tried this 12-step program in the beginning is because I was having trouble in my relationships. I was having trouble with work. At that time, I was doing a lot of modeling and commercial modeling, indie film acting. I had gotten in front of the camera in my 40s. That created a lot of insecurities for me, feeling really bad about myself. I was using alcohol to try to feel better about myself, give myself liquid courage, but in turn was always making me feel worse. So I was just constantly in this kind of roller coaster, like, where am I at? But what I did know is I wasn't happy.
Mm.
And I knew that things were crumbling around me. So I ultimately decided to try AA. I went into AA. I was terrified. The idea of never drinking again. I couldn't imagine it.
Right.
Something that had always been what I fell back on. I had so much shame, here my mom in the community and, involved in the PTO and all these things. And here I am and now in AA. So much shame, feeling so bad about myself. Well, I slowly started feeling better about myself, seeing that there's so many other moms in the room. There's so many different stories in the room. But then what I ultimately did was I started comparing my story with their story.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So about 3 months in of not drinking, gone on vacation, I'm feeling good about myself. I don't have a problem. I just was drinking a little too much. I just had a bad relationship, bad habit, right? So I convinced myself and my husband that I was okay. So I started drinking again, slowly, one drink here, one drink there. And then that just started escalating again. And there were a lot of things that started changing in my life. My husband got a really good job that he wanted me to change how I was, like no more drinking at dinner, no more this, and so I became very angry with him, like, you just want a Stepford wife. I'm trying to balance my schedule as far as be this actress and go into New York City and get training and do all the things that I could do to be successful, because when I'm all in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to balance being the best mom, because I never want to be my mom to my kids and have them feel abandoned. But all these things going on. But the one constant thing that I had was I was drinking. I was drinking to deal with my anger with not being able to do the work that I wanted to do, or, the training that I wanted to do. I had the anger that I didn't have the help with my kids. I had the anger that my husband wasn't around and working all the time. And then I had the idea that alcohol would be my liquid courage. If I'm so scared and terrified to go in for an audition, well, certainly a glass of wine's going to make me feel a little better.
Yeah.
So I had all of these different moving parts, but the reality is they all had to do with alcohol. When I think about them, they all had to do with alcohol ultimately. It's like a wanting to be the best mom that I could be, but having to drink to have more. I felt like it would give me more energy at night. Having to drink to be great in acting because it was my liquid courage. Drinking to deal with my life and my husband and my resentments. So it was just like all these pillars, but they were still engulfed in alcohol, right? There are all these things going on in my life. So ultimately what happened, my drinking had gone in really excess. It became mornings. How was I going to have lunch and have alcohol? How was I going to, drink in the afternoon, drink in the evening? Whereas before it was always just 5 o'clock happy hour, have my wine, have dinner, have a glass of wine with dinner. Now it had really escalated. I'm drinking during the day. During the weekends, I'm drinking during the day. Even if I was hiding it, I was still drinking.
Are you thinking about it even when you're not drinking?
Oh, yeah. So it was constant with the
Yeah.
alcohol. Everything was around
Yes.
alcohol. Even though I knew it was destroying me, everything was planned around it.
Yeah.
Right? So ultimately what happened was I was in such a place at that time, in such a place of resentment. I wasn't even thinking about my drinking being too much. Because at that time I was living I had very clouded judgment. I had so much anger and resentment at the time because I couldn't make anything work the way that I wanted it to work. And so much of that resentment was towards myself and towards my husband. I had so many self-esteem issues being in front of the camera. I loathed myself. So the drinking escalated because I loathed myself so much. But ultimately, the last day of drinking was October 3rd, 2015. I'd gone for a modeling gig. I was like going to be walking at, you know how the malls, they do these runway shows where you
Yeah.
show the models walk the clothing. So that was me. I went to one mall. I was supposed to do it. And I realized that I was at the wrong mall. Crazy part of that day was, and that's just because I was so clouded, I couldn't even read the email correctly to make sure where I was really supposed to go. So I went to the wrong mall, and I remember going up the escalator that day going, okay, Marci, you don't need to drink. You can do this without the alcohol. Well, I be damned. I find out I'm at the wrong mall. Now I am freaking out. I get in the car. I start drinking the wine on the way to the other mall because I am literally freaking out on the inside. And there's no other way that I feel that I can actually cope with this. I get to the other mall. I get there at the time of my gig, thankfully, walk the show. Now I'm going out with a girlfriend after. We're having drinks at lunch. Now this is, now we're at lunch.
Yeah.
It's like a morning show. So we have lunch. I'm not really eating very much at all because, right, I'm drinking my calories.
Right.
And then she says, you want to go have another drink? And of course, I'm not in any place where I can be making a good decision. So I go for another drink.
It's a dream when someone else suggests the alcohol, right?
Exactly. So we go for another drink. I remember the last things I remember were I'm starving right now and I have to eat something. Like I knew that I had had too much to drink and I knew I had the ability to know that. But then I went into a blackout. And I guess what happened is she went to the ladies' room and I probably got confused. I didn't know where she was. And I got behind the wheel of my car and started driving home. Somebody called in an erratic driver. That was me. And they found me on the side of the road and I ended up getting a DUI. I went to bed that night, still in anger. Like, this happened to me, not my fault. The magical thing that happened is I woke up the next morning and it was like the final straw. Like God walked in for me and said, Marci, it's time to surrender. It's time to let go. And I was able to tell myself I had a drinking problem. I was about to lose everything. I went downstairs, sat down with my husband. So not only did I have this self-loathing, but I was always looking for someone to love me because there were so many abandonment issues from my past, sexual abuse in my past, just so much trauma. And, I built so many barriers trying to cope and live this normal life. And but I never really thought that I was lovable, right? Because nobody actually stayed around me and loved me. So I told him that I was an alcoholic. And it was like in that same moment, the weight of the world came off my shoulders. He embraced me. And it was the first time I truly felt love. And it was the most beautiful, beautiful moment. I dedicated my book to him because it's like he showed me what love is. I'm broken in too many little pieces. And you held me even though I've hurt you so badly and said, I'm here for you.
How special.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes. It was a miracle. It was really a miracle. And I knew a woman from the rooms before when I had gone in and I called her and I went to an AA meeting and honestly, I never looked back. I was willing to do the work. I was broken. So I was willing to do whatever they told me to do.
I too went into the rooms at the very beginning of my recovery, and I just remember being in awe of these people who knew things about life and knew themselves as a person, because like you said, I was broken as well. I didn't know who I was as a almost 35-year-old man. Didn't know my likes, my dislikes, didn't know anything about myself, or hadn't built any of those characteristics as an adult
Mhm.
prior to getting sober. I relate to that so much. I was just shattered, really.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
much of what we learn in the rooms is being able to then turn it and help the next alcoholic. And I really just love the way that the program is laid out. It's so genius and
Mhm.
saved my life for sure. You said several things that I relate to so much that I wanted to touch on, and really felt, and I can go back to the day that I got my DUI and remembering that feeling of shame. And I don't regret too many things in my life, because I truly believe that, each decision I made has gotten me here to where I am today. But one regret that I do have is driving under the influence so often, and just the you know careless nature in which I considered those around me, or didn't consider those
Yeah.
around me, I think is one of my biggest regrets.
I still feel pain from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so grateful. I mean, I remember after that just thanking God over and over and over. The first and foremost, that I didn't harm anyone else,
Right.
and then myself for my children. One of the things I talk about, and I'd love to know from you too, is like once I started becoming so spiritually connected, I started to be able to see so many signs in my life.
Oh,
And I talk about that a lot in my book. But I remember like after my DUI and seeing a shadow, not that day, because I wasn't a clear mind at that time, but just in those beginning stages of sobriety, like literally even seeing a shadow in the driver's seat. Like
mm,
my angel was helping me through that
wow.
time.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah.
It gave me
And
chills.
like so powerful. And then when after I got sober, I made the decision that I was no longer going to act and go on the auditions anymore, because it just brought nothing good to my life. Right,
Yeah.
there was nothing that was so. I was in bed. I'd gone to an infomercial. I shot an infomercial that day, and it didn't go well.
Yeah.
And the great thing was, I would have drank before. But what I was able to tell myself that day, because I was sober and I'd done a lot of the work, that Marci, you just had a bad day at work. We have bad days at work, right? I used to
There it
like
is.
make it all about me.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And so I went to bed that night and I woke up in the middle of the night and why am I even doing this? I felt terrible after it. I had to find someone to go get my daughter. I had my period, like the whole
Yeah.
day stopped,
What
right?
value is it
What
adding
am
to my
I
life?
doing? I don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself in the middle of the night, I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to call my agent tomorrow. I am done. No more. Not even the little ones, that I've done before, say that I, would do these little infomercials, whatever. Right in that moment, Nate, I feel something in my bed. And I know this is going to sound crazy. I feel something in my bed and it's hard. So I pick it up and I'm like holding it in my hand and I turn on the light. And it was my modeling card that I had not used for over a year. And I kept these cards in an office downstairs. You
Wow.
tell me how that card
I
got in.
believe it, because shit like that's been happening to me since I got sober too. And
And I knew in that moment it was my sign.
yes,
Don't give up. There's something bigger. What's happening
yes,
today, right? There's
yes,
something bigger that's supposed to happen for you.
yes,
Don't stop.
yes. I remember texting my best friend got sober like 5 or 6 months before I did. And I remember texting her probably 2 or 3 months in and saying, I swear the grass is greener and the sky is bluer now. And, it's probably just the fog is lifted and our senses are coming back to us. But that was a sign to be in nature more. And that's where I find my serenity now. And it was just kind of a little thing that pointed me, in the direction to find the next bigger thing, much like
You,
your card did.
yeah, you do see it differently. And like
Yeah.
when I see certain birds,
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh, that's my angels right there. I
Beauty everywhere.
and I have a dragonfly on, and dragonflies are all in my branding. So I got sober. I live in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in one house, and we ended up moving to another home. Now I got sober in the other house, and that's where all of these bad things happen. We come to this new home. I'm about a year into my sober journey. I'm sitting outside by the pool. There's a dragonfly that's like dipping his little nose in the water. And I look up, and Nate, there's hundreds of dragonflies. It,
Wow.
wow, right?
Wow.
Like, and dragonflies became my sign. And
That,
transformation, right? The
yes.
transformation that just that I had to go look up this, your spirit animals or
Right.
what these animals like. There's something that's being told to you, whether it's a butterfly or a ladybug or, the dragonfly or whatever it is. Like, go look these things up.
Yeah.
You keep seeing a falcon, go look it up. It's telling you something.
Not to be too, woo woo or whatnot, but there is a vibrational connection that we have to other beings. And that is something that I've come to realize too, and along my spiritual journey, and just being open and
Yeah.
aware of my environment so much more is something that I'm just so grateful for each day.
I think that, one of the things that I have found, and I hear you say, and so many of us that are really doing the work and become spiritually awakened, is you start to really be connected in a different way. You start doing the vibrational and energy work. You see things in a very different way, and you're able to open yourself up to these things and guidance. And when you are numbing yourself
Mm.
constantly and you are just going through the hamster wheel of life, you will never find that connectiveness like you do when you are able to clear your body, heart, and soul of the toxins. And that's the beauty of stripping away the layers that we build up around ourselves. Like, I don't know about you, but for survival, I had to put up wall
Mm.
after wall after wall. And
There can be a selfish nature to recovery, particularly in the beginning when we start to establish boundaries that perhaps people in our lives aren't used to seeing or hearing.
yep,
And there is that level of protection that we need to sort of impart on ourselves. And I think it's absolutely necessary to begin that healing process.
yeah, boundaries are so important. I feel like a lot of people that I have talked to in recovery, you're always saying yes to someone. You always are
Mhm.
trying to be a people pleaser. You're a very sensitive, empathetic person. These are things that we're told a lot of times are wrong, um, but they're actually they're actually beautiful because you have. I don't know. I just feel like once you're able to clear yourself in your head, you're able to really shine,
Mm.
shine. Um, in a way that you never have before.
I completely agree. And I love
Mhm.
it. Marci, a lot of our listeners are in first 90 days of recovery,
Yeah.
even sooner in some cases. And I like to leave them with some actionable items. Are there any tangible things or action items that you could suggest to those in early recovery today?
Yes. Um, First, congratulations. You're making the first step to a beautiful life. And some things that really worked for me is making the 90 meetings in 90 days,
Yes.
making that commitment to do that. The second thing is connecting with people in the rooms. So vital. We all started somewhere, right? We
Yeah.
are started in those rooms with day one, and we're all there to help each other. So find some people to connect to. So important. Pick up that phone, call people, do things with them. Finding a sponsor is important, but don't feel bad if you don't find the person you connect with. I think it's important that you really connect with the person that's going to be your sponsor and guides you through the big book and what worked for them. So don't feel bad if you don't find someone right away.
I love
They're
that because that can create extra anxiety that's not necessary.
exactly.
If you have people to surround yourself with and vent to or seek guidance from, I think that's
Mhm.
enough in the beginning.
It is enough. And, somebody can step in and start with you, but that doesn't mean they're going to be your ultimate sponsor.
Yeah.
I really liked some little things. Move a muscle, change a thought was huge for me. I remember very beginning of my sobriety, my husband traveled a lot. So when he would leave, I mean, I could drink, who's going to know, right?
Yeah.
I remember laying on the couch and watching a movie and thinking, I could go get some wine right now and nobody would be the wiser. But I said, no, I got up and I moved a muscle because if you start moving, right, and doing something else, you can't think of two things at one time.
Right.
So I actually got up and went and got my big book and started reading my big book. But that's also another time that you could make that phone call.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of cravings. So, just realize you're going to have cravings for sugar. Um, One of the things, I don't know why I always craved like sweet and salt. So I would love grapefruit juice and with salt on the rim. That was
Oh,
so good. I
that's like
really
a fancy
enjoyed
little,
that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So that became my drink. And, there's just, just really listen and embrace this next journey in your life and don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. If you relapse, just start over because you're human and it took you a long time to get where you are today. So it's going to be a long time to heal and to get through this. But we're so deserving of finding this magic. And it's through sobriety that I have my talk show, that I have a book, that I can share these moments with you, that I can be spiritually connected, that I can know who I am and actually love myself. And it's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. So keep going, guys. Keep going.
Let hearing us today, let this be your sign. Let this be the modeling card in your bed that you are on the right path. And this could be the start of something beautiful.
Mhm.
Marci Hopkins, the book is From Chaos to Clarity. I'll link it in today's show notes. I know wakeupwithmarci.com. Anywhere else online people can find you or that we can
I'm on Instagram a lot. I share a lot
yeah,
about show and upcoming things that are happening, and I try to give inspiration myself,
yes.
little mental health and sober inspiration. Wake up with Marci and host Marci Hopkins. I'm on Facebook.
Awesome. We'll link everything in
Thank you.
today's show notes. Marci, what a pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Nate.
making time today. Thanks so much for listening today, friends, and downloading our episodes. Hopefully you heard something inspiring today and that resonates with you. For more information and to apply to be a guest on the show, head over to thesobrietydiaries.com or follow us on Instagram at Podcast Revolution Studios. I love chatting with you guys. Check out all of our video episodes at youtube.com/NateKelly. Make sure to subscribe to the show now so you never miss an upload. We're back with new episodes every Wednesday. Goodbye, everyone.